Alright, welcome. So this is 8.6 video, and so today we are dealing with the law of cosines. So last video we dealt with law of sines. This one we are law of cosines. So law of cosines, when do we need to know it? So if you don't need to write this down, just make sure you have what's written down in the box. But why do we use it? If you know the measures of two lengths of a side and the measure of an included angle, or if you have all three lengths of the side, then we can be able to find out these different measurements, either the sides or the triangles. And we have this formula right here in order to find the law of cosines. So the formula is this right here. If we have a squared, so if I have here's my triangle, again I have my angle and the side across from it is a. So if I have a squared right here, this is going to equal b squared, so the two sides across from it, minus 2 times the two sides across it times that cosine of a right there. And we can also find the angle as well right there. But these three formulas right here, whether you're finding c, then you're taking the two sides that are across from it and using the cosine c, or b and you're finding the two sides across from it, which would be a and c, and then using the cosine b. But we can use this formula in order to find out different either angles or different sides of the triangle. And again, it doesn't have to be a right triangle right here. We can use this on any type of triangle. Okay, so with a few examples, this should become a little more clear. Alright, so let's do a few. Alright, so here's my first one right here. So it says, find b to the nearest tenth right here. And so we have this formula, so we're trying to find out what b is. So again, we got to remember what this formula is. So it is going to be, if I'm solving for b, that side of b, it's b squared equals the two other sides, a and c squared, a and c, so that should be c right there, a plus c squared, minus 2 times both those opposite sides, which were a and c, and then we're going to multiply that times the cosine of b. So let's just plug in everything that we have. Well, we don't know what b is. That's what we're trying to find. So we still have b squared equals a squared. Well, if this is a squared would be 22. So this is 22 squared. Plus c squared would be across from c, so that would be 10 squared. Minus 2 times, well, what was a? We said a was 22. We said c was 10. And then we are going to multiply this by the cosine of b. And we have the cosine, we're using cosine every time. What was b? So we're taking cosine of 44. Okay. So let's multiply this out right here. So we have 22 times 22 is 484. So well, this right here, down here is going to be 22 times 22 is 484. So I have 484 plus 100. If I take negative 2 times 22 is negative 44. Negative 44 times 100 is negative 4,400 times 100 times 10 minus 440 times the cosine of 44. So I just multiply these out and we still have this b to the power of 2. Alright, so let's multiply these out. If I have cosine 44, so let's put that in my calculator. Cosine 44 times 440 is going to equal, and let's round this right here, I'm going to get 316.51 minus, and then this, if I take these, 44 plus 100 is going to give me 584, and so b squared still equals this. And if I subtract these right here, b squared equals, if I take 584 minus 316.51 is going to equal 267.49. Alright, and then my last step right here. Well, I want to get just b, this is b squared. What do I have to do to both sides? I have to square root both sides. So if I take the square root of the 267.49, this is going to give me a final answer of 16.9 let's just call it 36 right here, 16.36, and that would be my final answer. Okay, so a lot of work right there, but as long as we can plug it in correctly, we should be able to solve. Alright, and so this will be just my last example that we have right here. So in this example right here, it says triangle TUV, and it doesn't give me a triangle. So if it doesn't give me a triangle, let's make sure that we draw a triangle. It's always good to have pictures. It's very hard for us to do this in our heads. So if I have a triangle, and if this is T, this is U, and this is V right here, and it tells me, and I'll use a different color, let's use red right here, if it tells me that TU is 4.4, so this side is 4.4, it tells me that UV is 7.1, and if it tells me that TV is 6.7, and we are trying to find out what the angle V is, so we're trying to figure out what this is right there. Okay, so even though we have different letters right here, it's the same process that we have. So remember, we wrote the formula. It didn't matter which one we had. Let's say we did the b squared one, the one we just wrote. B squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2 times a times c times the cosine of b. Alright, so when we're doing this formula, even if we have different letters than A, B, or C, it's the same process right here. Okay, we are trying to find out what the cosine of V is right here. Cosine of V. So we could do cosine of V. That's what we're trying to find out. So V right here, it's always the one opposite of right here. So we know the one opposite, so we know, like in this case, it was B squared and cosine V. We know the one opposite is 4.4. That's my side opposite. Well, if I have 4.4 right here, then the A and the C are the two ones that are opposite of this. So if I'm using this for my B, the other two sides that are opposite are going to be the ones I'm plugging in for A and C, and it doesn't matter the order that I plug in for A and C. So I'm going to have, this is going to be 6.7 squared plus 7.1 squared minus 2 times, let's see if I can fit this. I don't think I can. This is going to give me 2 times, and again, I'm just doing these two sides that are opposite that 4.4, which is 6.7 and which is 7.1, and now I'm trying to find out what the cosine V is. So a lot of different stuff going in there, but my biggest thing is just getting it set up right here. I figured out what that cosine was, what the side opposite was right here, which I knew was 4.4 because this side is opposite, which means that these 7.1 and 6.7 had to be like my A and B in this scenario right here. Okay, so let's start to work all this stuff out. We'll definitely need a calculator to start doing this computation. So 4.4 times 4.4 is, this is 19.36. Okay, 6.7 squared is 44.89. Plus 7.1 squared is 50.41. And then I'm going to multiply these all together. Negative 2 times 6.7 times 7.1, and this is going to give me minus 95.14, and this is still times the cosine of V. Alright, so if I'm looking at this right here, my whole objective is to get this V, that angle, to be all by itself. So let's switch colors. What am I going to do first? Well, I can combine these two together. I can't combine this because it still has that times cosine to it though. But if I take right here 50.41 and if I add it with 44.89, this is going to give me 95.3. 95.3, and I'm going to bring this down. Minus 95.14 times the cosine of V, and this still equals 19.36. Okay, Getting closer. Okay, so I need to now get this 95.3 on the other side. So I am going to subtract 95.3 to both sides. That way I'm trying to get this cosine V on itself all by itself. So if I get 19.36 minus 95.3, this is going to equal negative 75.94. And this is going to equal negative 95.14 times the cosine of V. Okay, so again, now if these are multiplication, sorry about that. I now need to get that cosine V all by itself. Let's use violet. So what am I going to do? I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 95.14. So that way these can cancel right here. And I'm going to divide this side by a negative 95.14. Okay, so I put this in my calculator and I get 75.94 divided by 95.14, and this is going to give me a long decimal. Eventually I'm going to get the cosine of V. The cosine of V is going to equal, and I just divided that right there, which is going to equal 0.798, and let's just round this to 2 right there. Okay, so again, just like we've done before when we did our law of sines or we're doing our SOHCAHTOA, if I'm trying to find out what V is right there, I need to choose green. I need to do the inverse of this. So what is the inverse of cosine? Well, that's the inverse of cosine with that negative 1 right there. So I have to do that to both sides. And so when I do that to this side, though, the way I'm going to put it in my calculator is it's going to look exactly like this, 79.82, and I'm going to put it in just like that right there. And so this is going to give me the inverse of cosine, and this is going to give me 37. My final answer is going to be 37.0. Let's just round it to 4 right there. And we are talking, this is a degree, so we're talking about degrees, and that is my final answer. Okay, so when it comes to doing the law of sines, or even the law of sines we did the other day, but the law of cosines, the biggest thing is just getting it set up correctly. Once you can get it set up correctly, you should be able to solve, whether that's for the angle, like what we just did in this problem, or whether that's like the side that we did in the problem right before. Okay, all right, see you guys soon.